Dr. Marcie Beigel.
Hi, guys. You talk back. Well, that's exciting. All right, awesome. This is going to be super fun. Okay, so when Michael said alone is the new black is the topic, I got excited, and the first thing out of my mouth was, I know a lot about that. Oh, it doesn't say alone is the new black anymore. That's me. And then I sat down, and I was like, why do I know a lot about that? Where did that thought come from? And I went, oh, because a while ago I decided I was going to learn about being alone, right? Because that's kind of what I do. I constantly am learning something or another. And so I went back and I was like, when did I start learning about being alone? And I was 27, and I was living in New York City, and I was engaged to this lovely human who we'd been together for 7 years, living together for 4, and engaged for 6. And 2 months before this moment that I'm going to tell you about, we started going to couples therapy. And you know that the upcoming marriage is going to be great when you're already in couples therapy. So I was like, okay. And I knew that this was not a good plan. And somewhere along the line, I went, right, amazing, wonderful, kind, gentle, I love you. Not in love with you anymore. I can't do this. And so one night, I finally got the gall to do it and came home. He had cooked dinner and got us a bottle of wine, and we sat down. And to this point in time, I had never really lived alone. I had moments alone, right? Because we all, on the subway, we're by ourselves. We have meals alone. But I had always lived with somebody. And I come home and we go through dinner, because in the middle, he cooked dinner. You can't leave in the middle of cooked dinner. Nope. I'm going to eat the dinner because it's going to be good, and we're going to drink the wine because that'll make me, much more likely to actually give you the ring back. And after dinner, it's about 9 p.m., and I go, I can't do it. And I take the ring off, and I put it on the table. Yeah. Thank you. I mean, we had been in couples therapy for 2 months. He had known this was coming. It wasn't, but he was shocked. But I was like, okay, so now what? And we talked for a little while, and he was really confused and devastated. And I said, well, I'm going to go for a walk, and you figure out what you need to do. So I left the apartment and walked around Harlem for 2 hours, right? It's a good plan, devastated, heartbroken. But I just gave the ring back, so there was no giant rock on my fingers. Much safer now. So I'm walking around, and I come back home, and it's about 11:30 or midnight, and he's still there. And I'm like, so what? Now what? And he's like, I just need to go to sleep. I don't want to be alone. And I go, okay, well, I'm going to sleep on the couch, and we'll figure it out. And the next morning, I had to wake up and go to work. He didn't. Maybe that's part of the problem. And around 4 o'clock in the morning, he comes in and wakes me up. And I go, what's happening? And he goes, I'm leaving. I packed up the car, and I'm leaving. And I said, well, okay, bye? Like, I'm sure we'll talk, or I'll see you, or bye? And I give him a hug, and he left. And that was actually the last time I ever saw him. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Just like 7 years of my life, someone I talk to every single day, gone. Which I don't understand how you pick up a life full on in New York City, move home to his parents' house, and never come back. It was fascinating to me. But I then had to live my life. And so that week I, got up and I went to work the next day and I did all the things that I did. And it was June. And so one of those days after work, I was near Central Park, and I went and I sat on a bench right at the edge of Central Park. And I couldn't go in. I couldn't take the step and walk in, which sounds crazy, right? You just left foot, right foot, other way around. But you just walk in. And I couldn't do it. And I sat on the bench and I started crying. And I just was like, and it wasn't even that I had called the engagement off, because I was like, yeah, you go move back home. I'm going to be here fine. I got a life. It's good, right? I was fine with that part. It was more, no one knew where I was. No one had any idea that I was sitting at the edge of Central Park. And if I went in, I was going to be the next victim on Law and Order. I was convinced that Jerry Orbach was going to have to call my dad and say, I'm so sorry, but we just found your daughter murdered in Central Park. So I didn't go in. And what did we do? We take out our cell phone, because I can't be alone and scared that nobody knows where I am. And I take out my phone and I call a friend. And my friend goes, what's going on? And I was like, no one knows where I am. She goes, isn't it great? I was like, what are you talking about? No. No one knows where I am. No one cares if I make it home for dinner. No one cares if I make it home tonight. No one knows where I am. She goes, I know. Isn't that fun? I couldn't wrap my head around what was going on, but I knew it wasn't okay. And she's like, well, just go into the park. Just go walk. Which is always great when your friends are like, just go walk you're like, right, if I could, I would have. Thank you. And so I sat on the bench talking to her, feeling very, very devastated that I couldn't And I'm a behavior specialist. For 10 years at this point, I had been working around behavior, studying behavior. And I was like, right foot, left foot, right, nope. And so I go to her, I go, what are you doing right now? She goes, well, I'm in my apartment. I'm going to go food shopping. I go, can I come? What? She's like, oh, okay. I don't want to go food shopping for myself. Yet all of a sudden, I wanted to go food shopping for somebody else's groceries because I couldn't be alone. I couldn't bear the thought of being alone. I couldn't bear the thought of nobody knowing where I was. So I go and we go food shopping, and she's literally getting special case cereal and bananas. And I'm like, why am I here? But I couldn't be alone. And I actually stayed at her apartment for a week after that because I just couldn't go home and be alone there because nobody knew that I was there. And at that point, I started going, okay, but we're on to something here because she's really excited about being alone, and I'm terrified. So let's figure out what that's about because I'm not okay with this. I don't want to live my life this way because it's a way to get in a really bad relationship, right? Do you want to know where I am? Okay, let's make this work. Right? So let me figure out what alone is about. So I started asking everyone I knew, what do you do when you're alone? What is it that you do? Because for me as a behavior specialist, I already knew what the emotion was. It was fear. It was fear of never being loved again. It was fear that I made a mistake. It was fear that, I'd be the next victim on Law and Order, SVU, right? I knew what the emotional problem was, but I also knew that the way to change it was through my actions, not through my thoughts, because my thoughts were running crazy, as they do. So I said, okay, but if I change my actions, I know through the science that means that my thoughts will change, which will change my emotions. So let's change my action first, because I can control that right now. So I started asking everyone, what do you do when you are alone? And what do you do when you're alone? And what do you do when you're alone? And everyone started to think I was a little bit creepy. But that was okay. And I found out that people do all sorts of crazy, crazy things when they're alone, right? And it's everything from I go down to the corner pub where I'm friends with everybody and I have dinner. And you're like, oh, right. You are never alone because you have made friends with everybody in your neighborhood. Or all the way to the extreme of they're like, I do 5 hours of meditation and sit by myself intentionally alone very much. And everything in between. And it was so cool, all of the possibilities. And then I was like, but how do you decide what to do? Because, right, being newly single, all of a sudden you have a whole lot of alone time that you weren't used to having. And I was like, how do you decide? And so this same friend who was like, isn't it great? I called her because I figured she was going to have a great answer. And she goes, you just pick an answer. And I went, wait, no, really? How do you know? She's like, you just decide. And that shouldn't be shocking, right? The fact that making a decision is literally saying A or B, B. That's how you make a decision. That there is no right answer in that moment in my life felt revolutionary. What I've learned since then is I think it's revolutionary to a lot of people, right? So many of us, we have so many choices and so many options and so many things to do that we never make a choice. We just pick what we do habitually and we do it subconsciously. And so when we get home and we have those 5 minutes to unwind, we all take out our phone and look at Facebook. Is that really what you want to be doing with your time? Probably not. But we do it because it's our habit. We do it because we know how to do that. And the things that I knew how to do when I was alone all of a sudden got taken away because I didn't know how to do anything by myself because there was always somebody else there. And so I was like, okay, so what are all of these things that people do? And of course, I went to the framework that I know, which is behavior. And I know that there are 4 reasons we do everything. 4 functions, all behavior. And I was like, oh, and I started classifying that, which I will warn you, it's part of why I don't call myself a therapist anymore, because your friends start to get worried when you start to go, oh, so when you're alone, you like to do yoga. I see why you do that, right? They're like, what are you, stop. Okay. And then they stop being your friend, and I decide that was a bad plan. But I decided not to figure out why other people do it, but start putting things in categories for myself. So the 4 things are because there's something medically going on, right? When I have a migraine, I am in bed because I can't be anywhere else. There's nothing else I can do. There's no other choice. There's no agency. So I was like, okay, medically, at this moment in my life, there was nothing wrong with me. I was fine. I was healthy. Everything was good. So I was like, okay, we can take that one off. And then there were 3 other choices. It was to gain attention, to escape, or because it felt good. And I went, well, okay, we're talking about being alone, right? I wanted to figure out and understand how to be alone. And I said, so if it's to gain attention, what are the things I do when I'm alone to gain attention? Well, I go back into the world. I talk to people. I pick up my phone and I call people. I do the things so that I'm not alone. And am I okay with that or am I not? And at different moments, I made different choices, right? But at that moment, when I was kind of studying all of this, I decided that I wanted to actually figure out what it would feel like to not go get attention somewhere. So I stopped doing those things for a little while. And not all together, but in those moments that I chose, I wouldn't call somebody. I wouldn't pick up the phone. I wouldn't, I think it's so fascinating that we all, especially in New York City, we all go work out together, but we don't talk to everybody, right? Like we're all together alone, right? There's a workout class that I go to now, and the teacher always comes in, and she goes, "Hi, guys, let's get started." And everyone's like, and they're ready, right? Because it's bar method, so we're all like, she walks in. If I'm in class, she walks in, and she goes, "Hi, guys." I go, "Hi." They're like, who said that? Because I think that we don't need to be alone when we're standing next to other people, right? It just makes so much sense. So I try not to do that, because if I'm going to be with people, I'll talk to them. So there was that. And then there's escape, right? Which a lot of people will drink to escape or go on social media to escape or, you name it. You probably have your own vices. For me, it's binge watching TV, right? Which I'm not allowed to watch Law & Order anymore. We've learned that lesson. But, pick anything and I'll just watch it because I can just tune out. And there are moments in our life where that is necessary because you've had a shit day. And you got to watch it. And I was in a moment where escape was necessary sometimes because I couldn't handle my own fear. I was so scared and I was so sad that helped me. But I also needed to make the choice to not stay there. And I make the choice now when I get home, well, what do I want to do? I just want to watch TV because I don't want to think about all of the things that I still have to get done today. Okay, but is that actually going to make me feel better? Do I actually think that that's going to make my soul happy? Because at the end of the day, what matters more is that I get to escape reality or that I've faced it and I'm happy with who I am. So let's do the hard work and get happy, right? So I looked at all the things that I do to escape and kind of went, right. And for a year, I gave up drinking. For a year, I gave up eating sugar and wheat and dairy. And you can ask some of my dear friends that are in the room. I was not very much fun. They were like, let's go to dinner. And it's like, okay, I'll get a salad. And they're like, and I didn't drink then either. So it was like all of these things, but I needed to know that I could be okay feeling all of my own feelings or not be okay feeling all of my own feelings. And it was crazy hard to be alone with that, but it's what you did and it's what got you through for me, right? Because now I'm actually over that ex, which left one more behavioral category, which was because it feels good. And I was like, oh yeah, when I'm alone, I want to do the things that feel good. That makes so much sense. And I got all excited, and then I sat down, and I was like, okay, what feels good? And I had no idea. I had no idea what I wanted to do with my time. I know what I had done in the past that felt good. I knew what sometimes felt good to me, but I didn't know, do I want to pick up a book and read it? Do I want to write a book? Do I want to study something? Do I want to listen to someone else inspire me? Do I want to paint? Do I want to draw? Do I want to run? Do I want to meditate? Do I want to... And the list went on. And so I called that same friend and I went, how do you pick? She goes, you just do. You just pick. You just pick one. And I was like, I have no idea what that means. But okay. So I went to the list of, because I'm a nerd, just so you know. Anyone who says that they're like a therapist or has their doctorate, doctor in front of your name, means you're a big nerd because you like to study. And for me, I like to analyze all the information, right? So I wrote down all of the things that people were telling me because I was going to forget. So I wrote it all down. So I went back to all of the lists and I was like, okay, I'm going to try all of these things and see what I like. And I had a very interesting conversation with my sister where I told her I'd never gone to a movie or a meal by myself. And at 27, you probably should have done those things already. So I had meals by myself, but I never gone to a restaurant and sat down and ordered and waited and done all of those things. So I started doing these things. And I found that I really like going to restaurants by myself because you can make up stories about everybody around you, right? Just I don't know if it's true, but you're on a first date and you're best friends, but you're having a fight and your date's going really well. And, you just could make up all these stories. It was great. I could be alone in public and have all these things. But I still got stuck on what made me feel good. What did I want to do? And the hard part was that it also put me in this place of when you're alone and trying to make that decision, feeling all of those feelings of being scared and not enough, and did I make the right choice, and what if nobody knows where I am? And so I came up against that because I'd be like, okay, I'm going to draw, right? Get out my coloring book and my markers. And as I'm sitting there by myself with no noise on, coloring, all of those feelings would come up. And so it's a decision of, okay, well, now I gotta go do something else and walk away, or do I stay and do I sit and do I let myself have all of those feelings and know that I'm doing the thing that's going to make me feel better because I'm coloring and that's going to make me happy at the same time that I'm feeling really sad. And what I found was that actually works. Sounds a little crazy, but as I kept the actions going and said, this makes me happy, going to restaurants and making up stories about what people are doing makes me really happy, right? And going to the movies by myself never made me happy because I like to talk. And strangers in a movie theater don't like you to talk to them, right? So don't try that. Well, you can try that. It'd be really interesting. Right? So I found all the things that really made me happy, that made my soul feel good. And what I found at the same time was that forced me to look at the things that made me really, really scared. But I kept doing those things. And the cool thing about that is that it never took the fear away. I'm still scared that I'm going to be alone forever. Even when I've been with people, you ever been in a really great relationship and you're like, fuck, I'm going to be alone forever. It's like one of those human needs that's based inside of us. Right? Biologically, think about it. 1,000 years ago, when we were alone, it meant you died. That's where it comes from. I don't think I can now there's we can dance too now. Sorry, I got distracted. Right? Our DNA is built to say you need to be with people. You cannot be alone. I can't override that. It's in my body. It's in my bones. But that's okay. I can still have that thought and go, but I'm going to go walk into the park and I'm going to be okay because I'm going to be alone and it's going to be great and I'm going to do something that makes me really happy. And so I have chosen to follow my behavior and follow my actions. And what happened, and it feels like magic on some days, but it's not, is that if I follow my actions and do the things that make me happy, the thoughts change, right? I don't get stuck in that loop of fear anymore. I don't get stuck in that place of no one's ever going to love me again. And I end up finding people in my life that love me more than I ever imagined I could actually be loved because I took the time to sit in the thing that scared me the most. And the other thing that has been amazing for me around that is once you learn to sit in one deep, terrifying fear, when you find others, you're like, ooh, this is good, right? So when Michael talked about the fact that the way I talk about behavior works for business as well as small beings, with my own business, there are things that terrify me, and I'm like, I'm doing it right, scared to death, and I'm going to keep going now. It's how I know I'm doing it right is because I know that fear is coming from that place deep inside of me, which means I'm in that place deep inside of me. And when you're in that place, all of the goodness is there, right? So for me, when I'm alone now, I'm not as scared, and I also know that I get to make the choice of what do I want to do. Do I want to escape? Because sometimes it's really fun. Do I want to do something to get attention and call a friend or go out and meet people or whatever it is, go on Facebook? Well, then I can do that. Or do I want to do something that's going to make my soul really happy and sit and meditate? Because that makes me feel really good too. And different times, different days, I make different choices. And sometimes I don't know what to choose still. So I sit and I wait till I know what to choose. But as long as I'm making that choice intentionally, everything seems possible. Right? As long as I know that I'm doing it. And for me, the thing that's scary about being alone is when we don't know that we have the choice. When we just automatically are doing things and never face that fear, never acknowledge that it's an option, never know that there can be more. So that is my story for you. Thank you so much.